the things in common that we have. And we're going to talk about that a little bit this morning. I want to make sure we make this announcement as well. Jimmy Carver's wife's sister, her first name is Lolly, or that's how she's referred to, was diagnosed with breast cancer, and she ended up having a mastectomy, but they've gone back in and they've realized that she now has stage 4 breast cancer. And we need to remember her in our prayers, and we certainly will, and we'll make sure we get this in our bulletin as well so that you can have that in front of you. But we need to remember them in your prayers, her as she's going through all of this, and her family as they're helping her to deal with all this. And this is certainly, I know this is not what they expected. This is a blow, but we can pray, and that's what we're going to do. 1 Corinthians chapter 13. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. In other words, not much use. Just something, it's just noise. It's just noise in the background. And that's really what it is. And if I have prophetic powers and I understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but if I don't have love, I'm nothing. I'm useless. In spite of all of that ability and knowledge and faith that I have, I'm not going to accomplish anything without love. If I give away all I have, and if I deliver up my body to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. All of the things that we do, let's be honest, we look for a reward at the end of the things that we do on this life. And if we don't have love, our reward is nothing. Love is patient, and love is kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way, and it is not irritable or resentful. Now, I know all of us here know at least one person that fits this category, that love's not in their life, and that's exactly what they are. They're envious, they're boastful, they're arrogant, and they're rude. They insist on having their own way, regardless of what it means to others. They're irritable and they're resentful. It's because they don't have love in their life. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but it rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, it believes all things, it hopes all things, and it endures all things. It allows us to go through life in the way that we really need to go through life, being able to get through it the very best we can. Love never ends, and as for prophecies, they'll pass away. As for tongues, they'll cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part, but when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I gave up childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall fully know, even as I have been fully known. So now, faith, hope, and love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love. Perfect chapter. It is one of those chapters that stands, if you took that, and I'm not saying we should, but if you took that out of the Bible and you just put that as a piece of literature, it stands alone among so many great things that have ever been written. Just in its writing, there's so much that's contained in there, so much that we can learn. Even if you have no belief in God whatsoever, if you have no faith, you look at that and you realize what love truly is, because it speaks to everyone. Not just to the Christian, of course it is speaking to us, but it speaks to everybody, no matter who you are. It tells you what love is and how we show that kind of love that we're supposed to have in our lives, for God, for ourselves, and for others. Well, today, just a short period of time, we're going to talk about 10 ways to love. I know you're thinking, 10 points. Oh, Chuck. What have you done? I promise, we're not going to be here all day. But I do have 10 points, 10 ways in which we can love and how we can love a little bit better. And we're going to go point by point really quickly. Well, Proverbs chapter 18 and verse 2, really quickly. Proverbs 18 verse 2. This first way that we can love and love better. You know, like anything else we do, we can always improve on it, right? No matter what it is we do, no matter where we find ourselves in our lives, no matter what we're trying to accomplish, we can always do a little bit better job at it. We can always improve. I know I can. I'm sure you can. You probably sitting there going, oh yeah. If you're sitting there saying, nope, I can't improve at all, then you really need to listen to this, okay? But let's be honest, we can all improve just a little bit. So let's think about this. In Proverbs 18, verse 2, we're going to learn how to improve our love a little bit. A fool has no delight in understanding, but only in expressing his own heart. So what is it saying here? A fool is someone who sits there, and as they're listening to someone else, they're constantly thinking about how they can go ahead and interject themselves and how they can interject their own thoughts into what's being told to them. Everybody knows somebody that they're not listening, they're just waiting to talk, right? You know, as you're talking to them, you can say they're already formulating a response. They're not listening to you. They're formulating their own ideas and their own response. So the first way that we can improve our love is we can listen without interpreting. We can truly listen to someone who's trying to tell us something without automatically interpreting that in a way and putting it through our own lens and viewing it through our own lens. We can listen to someone and really hear what they're trying to tell us without interpreting what they're trying to tell us. Because you know what? Most people, when they're sitting there talking to us face to face, they're going to tell us exactly what they want us to know, exactly what I want you to hear. I don't need you to sit there and try to interpret it or try to translate it or try to do any of those things. I just want you to listen to what I'm saying. And here it says that a fool is the one who does that. He has no delight in understanding what the person is saying. He's just expressing his own heart. He's putting himself into it. He's interjecting himself. And one of the greatest gifts we can give to another person is to truly listen. I don't know how many times when I sat there and listened to somebody and they just wanted, I just need to talk. That's fine, come on in. So we'll sit there and they'll talk to me. And I just sit there and I don't say a word. And I found it very interesting. I've had people come in and they'll sit down. I won't say anything. I just sit there and we just sit. And we sit and you think, there's nothing going on. The silence is palpable. And finally, they've decided what they want to say, and they begin to talk. And I don't say anything. I just nod. And it's surprising what people truly want to express from their heart, what they want to get off their chest, what they want you to hear. And we talk about, well, we don't really open up to each other anymore. It's because we don't listen to one another anymore. It's not because people don't want to talk. It's because we don't want to listen. And a conversation goes two ways. When somebody's trying to tell me something, I'm not sitting there trying to interpret what they're trying to tell me. My job is to listen to them in their entirety and then ask them, what can I do to help? What can I do to help you with this? Is there something that would a prayer work, or do you need something even more than that? But the reason that scriptures tell us that is because we have lost the art of hearing and listening what people are trying to tell us. But one of the greatest gifts that we can give to another human being, especially to a fellow Christian, is to truly listen to them and hear what they have to say and really allow them to tell us what's on their hearts, because you know what? Many people really, that's just what they need. They don't want us to necessarily solve a problem. They just want us to listen. Because guess what? A lot of people aren't listening to them, and they need someone to truly open up their ears and close their mouths and allow them to speak from their heart. And it's surprising what that will do for people. What that allows them to do, it frees up their mind, it frees up their heart, because somebody has truly listened to them, maybe for the first time. Number 2, James chapter 1, verse 19. So we need to listen without interpreting. Listen without interpreting. So number 2, James 1, verse 19 tells us, so then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. So it even gives us the idea about how we are to engage with one another when things are going on. And when people are coming to us with issues and problems, you know, we listen to people, we allow them to speak. And you know what, the first thing, sometimes, guess what? People tell you things that you're surprised to hear, right? All of a sudden, I had no idea. You know, I did. By the way, I'm having a problem with this sin. And they tell you the sin, and all of a sudden you have to sit there and hold your chin up because your jaw drops. I had no idea that this person had that problem. And all of a sudden, what do I do? You know, how do I react to this person? How do I engage this person productively for them? Not for me. Because you know what I want to do is I want to condemn the sin. You know you're not supposed to be doing that. They wouldn't be coming to talk to me if they thought it was okay. They know that it's wrong. Or they wouldn't need to come and say something. So of course they need to tell me. They need to talk and I need to listen. But what am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to speak without condemning. That's one of the ways that we love, is we speak without condemning the other person. When we have to confront a brother And eventually, if we are Christians, we are all going to have to confront a brother. Whoops. Sorry about that. Okay. We all must confront a brother. That's what's going to happen to us in our Christian life. If we go through our entire lives and we never have to confront a brother or sister in sin, or we never have to confront an issue, then we're not doing our job. We're not doing what we're supposed to be doing as Christians. So we're all going to have to confront someone, or someone's going to have to confront us. So what do we need to do? We must be able to do it without condemnation in our voice, even when we are right in what we say. And see, that's the key. A lot of times we have a sense of self-righteousness. I know I'm right in this. I have the Bible. You know what's interesting? We always say, I have the Bible on my side. The Bible's on my side. I'm right, and you're wrong. But what we have to be able to do is we have to be able to speak to the brother. We have to be able to speak to the sister. If we have love in our hearts, we have to speak to them without condemnation in our voice. They must know beyond a shadow of a doubt that when we speak to them and when we confront them in their error, it is because of love in our heart, not condemnation. We have no power to condemn, do we? We can condemn a behavior in that we can tell them that it's wrong and that it's sinful, but who has the power to condemn? Only God has the power to condemn. All we do is tell them what God has said. We must be able to speak without condemnation in our voice. And we have no power to condemn even when, in opposition to God's will, we truly want to. You know, let's be honest, sometimes we hear something that someone has done, we confront them in it, and what we want to do is we want to come down on them like the hammer of God, as if we have that position in life. We're the scourge of God. We're not the scourge of God. We're messengers, and that's all. And what we're supposed to convey to them is that God loves you, and I love you, and I want you to get out of this, because I don't want the relationship between you and God to be in disrepair. Because when it's in disrepair, you have no hope. But when it's in good condition, you have hope. We have to be able to speak to them in that way. Because when they sense condemnation in our voice, we feed right into every stereotype that Christians have. Let's be honest, people love to bash Christians because they say that we're condemning, we're hateful. You know what? Some of us are. But we don't have to be that way. We need to be able to speak without condemning. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 26. Number 3. Proverbs 21, 26. So when we love, we listen without interpreting, we speak without condemning. And Proverbs 21, verse 26. He covets greedily all day long, but the righteous gives and does not spare. So number 3, if we love, and in order to truly love, in order to improve on our love towards one another and towards God, we have to give without sparing. We have to give without sparing. Do we give, and everybody here has to ask this question of themselves, do we personally and we as a congregation give of our time, of our energy, of our abilities, of the wealth, of all of the blessings that we truly enjoy? Do we give of those, but only up to a point? People say this all the time. You probably said this. I know I've said it before. Look, I've done it, and I've done it, and I've done it, and I've done it, and I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. Let someone else do something for a change. I hear somebody back there. Haven't you felt that way before? Absolutely. Absolutely. You know why? Because we're human. We look at things from a fairness standpoint. I've done all of this work. I'm done. I've given as far as I can go. I've done it. I've engaged in this ministry, and I've engaged in this work, and I've worked in the church, and I've been working all my life, and I've gotten to the point where I'm done. I can't do anymore. No. See, this is the beautiful thing about God, and the beautiful thing about what He does for us is that no matter where we are, no matter at what point we get, no matter how tired we get, no matter at what point we finally we've gotten to that brink and we're ready to go over that brink, guess what He does for us? He says He lifts us up. We can continue to do. We can continue to go. We can continue to give. We can continue to work. We can continue to serve because God does it for us. He gives us the abilities, He gives us the strength, and He gives us the encouragement, no matter what else happens. No matter if we ever get encouragement from the church, whether we ever get encouragement from our brothers and sisters in Christ or from the world, God gives us it. And if He gives it to us, then there's nothing stopping us. But we have to be able to give without sparingly. And when we love, when we truly love, when we love God as we love ourselves, when we love our brethren as we love ourselves, we're going to give until the need is no longer there. That's what we're going to do. Not until we think that we've done our due diligence. Well, I've gone as far as I can. No, the need is still there. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to keep giving until the need's no longer there. And guess what? This is the thing. The need is always there. The need is always there. We may finish one thing, but then we move swiftly on to the next. Because the need is always there for work in the Lord's kingdom. It will not stop. Not until this world ceases to exist. The work is always going to be there. The fields are always going to be white unto harvest. And the workers are few. So guess what, folks? We have to hitch up our pants, and we have to get out there in the field. We have to do what's necessary, what needs to be done. Because God's going to give us the encouragement. But you know what? That shouldn't be that way. God shouldn't be the only people encouraging the brethren. The brethren need to encourage the brethren. And when we love, we're going to give without sparing because we are going to be with each other. We're going to bear each other up. Number 4, Colossians 1, verse 9. So when we love, we're going to listen without interpreting. We're going to speak without condemning. We're going to give without sparing. What does it say in Colossians 1, verse 9? Everyone knows this. For this reason, we also, since the day we heard it, do not cease to pray for you and to ask that you may be filled with the knowledge of His will and all wisdom and spiritual understanding. So what are we going to do when we love? We're going to pray without ceasing. I hesitate to say that there is not one aspect of the Christian life that is more effective in the lives of their fellow Christians than prayer, bar none. I can physically do everything that I want to do. I can physically go as far as I can. I can work without shirking. I can do all of these things. I can give without sparing, all these things. But if I pray without ceasing, that works more in people's lives than any physical thing, any financial thing, any physical thing that I could possibly do for the brethren, bar none. And I want to encourage, every once in a while I have to look at myself and I say, is my prayer life, not necessarily do I pray enough, but am I praying in the right way? Am I praying for the right things? Am I doing everything that I can when I pray for it to be as effective as possible? What am I praying for? Who am I praying for? In what way am I praying for them? Do they know that I'm praying for them? You know what? Sometimes I have to let people know, by the way, I know you've had this problem. I know you've mentioned it as in the service, and we have it in the bulletin, all these things, but I just want you to know that I have that in front of me when I pray, and I am praying specifically for you and the issue that you are having. You know what that does for people? I've been in hospitals quite a bit, and I talk to doctors. I actually talk to them. You know, when you could find them, they're usually going from room to room, but when you find them, I've spoken to them on occasion. I've been to those little seminars that they have at the hospital, and I've talked to them about it. And they said, you know what? They said, you know, whether or not I agree with the idea of a God that you pray to, I said, we cannot argue with the benefit that we see when people that are sick and under our care know that their church or whoever is praying for them. They said it is absolutely. It's as good as any medicine, because what that does is that gives them hope. And a patient without hope is not going to make it, especially when the prognosis is not a good one in the first place. Without hope, there is no hope. But when there's hope, they said, we have seen things happen that, you know, we always like to point at ourselves and say, well, I gave them the right medicine or we did the right surgery. There's some things that happened that I can't quite explain. But I do know that when their church or their temple or their whatever is praying for them, that good things happen. We have to be able to pray without ceasing. This ties directly into our giving without sparing. We give our prayers, and when do we give them? Wherever they're needed, as long as they're needed. We give until there is no need anymore. We do not stop until the need is no longer there. And as we said before, the need is always there. So we pray without ceasing when we love. Number 5, Proverbs chapter 17, verse 1. When we love, we answer without arguing. Better is a dry morsel with quietness than a house full of feasting with strife. That's one of those that's so common. There's such common sense in the Proverbs. It makes so much sense. Better is a dry morsel with quietness than a house full of feasting with strife. When we give an answer to a question or a complaint or a criticism, what is our answer? Oftentimes, guess what? Arguments follow. Arguments follow. Because what do we don't want to be criticized. We don't want to hear a complaint, especially a lot of times when the complaint's directed at us and we had nothing to do with it. I wasn't even responsible for that. But guess what? You get the complaint. Well, oftentimes, an argument will follow. And our answer should be short, concise, and conciliatory. In a way that it bridges a gap. In a way that it brings us closer to one another rather than, I've answered your question, now leave me alone. I don't have to answer to you. Is that the way we should be? No. We answer without arguing. Because arguments have done nothing good in the world. Nothing. Arguments have done nothing good in the world. Make sure we understand that. Arguments don't affect anything good. It doesn't. We have to be able to answer someone who comes to us, and we have to be able to answer them without an argumentative tone, in a conciliatory. How can we be closer to one another? How can we bridge this gap? How can we restore a relationship that may be broken in some way, shape, or form? That's the way we need to be. We need to be able to answer without arguing. When we love, our desire is that truth and peace prevail in all ways, no matter what. Maybe that criticism was unfounded. Maybe so. Maybe the argument was unfounded. Maybe so. Maybe the complaint wasn't even directed to the right person. Maybe so. But how we answer that makes all the difference in the world. We need to be able to answer someone without arguing. Number 6, Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 15. So when we love, we listen without interpreting, we speak without condemning, we give without sparing, we pray without ceasing, we answer without arguing. In Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15, but speaking the truth in love, as we just said, speak the truth in love, may grow up in all things into Him who is the head, which is Christ. So we need to be able to share without pretending. You think, okay, that doesn't make any sense. When we love, if we truly love, if we love those in the world, not the world, but those in the world, as we love our fellow Christians, we do not try to pretend that the truth is anything other than what it is. We don't try to play an end game. We don't try to run around the truth in order to make somebody feel good about something that they may be doing or a situation they find themselves in. And sometimes we do that. We're so intent. We love the friendship more than we love the friend. We want to maintain a relationship even when the relationship is no good. It's not working. We have to be able to tell that person the truth. We're so careful about, I don't want to lose a friend by telling. I hear people, I don't want to lose a friendship by telling them about Christ. I don't want to lose a friendship by telling them that what they're doing is harmful to themselves. It's harmful to their relationship with God. I don't want to lose that friendship. So you'd rather lose the friend. You'd rather lose the friend. Well, the truth may hurt to hear, but it's going to work towards the saving of a soul, which is really our job. We'd rather hurt with the truth than condemn with a lie. I would rather do that. I'd rather hurt somebody's feelings with the truth than comfort them with a lie. If we love, we're going to tell people what they need to hear in a loving way. Make sure we understand that in a loving way. We have to be able to tell people the truth, not necessarily what they want to hear. We must be able to share the truth without pretending that it's anything other than what it is. Number 7, Philippians chapter 2, verse 14. We're almost there. Philippians 2, verse 14. Okay, so if we love, we're going to share without pretending. What else are we going to do? Do all things without complaining and disputing. So we need to be able to work without complaint. Work without complaint. One of the hardest things that there is to do, I'll be honest with you. How many people here, and I want you to raise your hand, how many people here have worked, this is a chance to brag on yourself really a little bit. How many people here have worked at a place where you felt you were the only one ever doing the job? Raise your hands. At some point, everybody here has worked in the job and you think, is there anybody working here besides me? Especially if you've ever done any kind of a service job, food service or retail or something like that, or any of those jobs where you've got hourly employees. And you know there were guys who just showed up, they punched that clock, they went back in the back room doing inventory, And you didn't see them for the rest of the shift. Yeah, happens all the time. Well, what happens to those who are left behind? What are they doing? Where is everybody? Why am I the only person here? Why am I the only person working? Why are these guys continue to have a job? And we think of all of these things. Guess what? That translates over directly to the church, doesn't it? How many people, and I'm going to go raise your hand. Please don't raise your hands. Please don't raise your hands. How many people here have been part of a body of God's people, and you think, am I the only person doing anything? Am I the only person that's clocking in? Am I the only person? Where is everybody? Why isn't somebody else here? Why isn't somebody else doing something? And once again, that goes directly to our thought process. It goes directly towards our attitude. We need to be able to work without complaint. You know, here it says, do all things without complaining and disputing. So that means also, not only are we to come and we're to work without complaining that we're the only ones, but we're also not supposed to dispute with the brethren that we're working with. We're supposed to have a Christ-like attitude. You notice that you never see, whenever you saw the apostles, when they would begin to squabble amongst themselves and they would dispute amongst themselves, what did Jesus do? He stepped in. He made sure they understood, this is not for you. This is not for your glory. This is not for anything, any kind of earthly recognition. This is so that the job of the Father gets done. Stop arguing amongst yourself. Who's going to be greater in the kingdom? They would argue amongst themselves. Who's going to be greater? Well, you know, I did this and I did this. Well, you know, Peter, I was with the Lord when he was on the mount. All of these things, and you see that even these are the apostles, folks. These are the chosen 12 who were with Jesus throughout his entire ministry, and who were a part of that inner group of men that were so close to him, and even they squabbled. So is it going to happen in the Lord's body? Yes, it is. But here it's saying, do not do that. Do all things without complaining or disputing. Work. You know what makes hard work as enjoyable as possible? It's when negative comments and attitudes are left at the door, because we love one another and we come together with a common goal in mind. We need to be able to work without complaint. Number 8, 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and verse 7. Talking here about love, that beautiful chapter of 1 Corinthians 13. All of the great things that go along with it. Love does what? It bears all things, it believes all things, it hopes all things, and it endures all things. When we love, and in a way that we love, one of the 10 ways that we can love is that we can trust without wavering. We're not given to flights of fancy and going to and here and fro, whenever we hear something. You know, love means that we trust without wavering. Love for Christ and God allows us and enables us to trust absolutely in the promises that they have made toward us. But why do we do why do children do the things that we tell them to do, even though that it may be something uncomfortable to them? Because they trust us. We've given them a reason to trust in us so that they do the things that we tell them to do, much in the same way that Christ and his Father, God, have done the same thing for us. How do we know that God's going to fulfill his promises? Because he always fulfills his promises, always, forever. He has never once left something undone that he said that he would do. So when we love, we trust, and we trust without wavering. There is no doubt in our minds what's going to happen. And the same is true in our loving relationship with each other. We need to be able, as we love, to trust one another without wavering. I should have no doubt in my mind that the brethren are going to support me. Now, that doesn't mean give in to anything I want. It doesn't mean tell me what I want to hear. It means I know that they are going to support me. They're going to tell me what I need to hear. If they make a promise to me, they're going to keep the promise. They're going to do everything that they can to uplift and edify me. We need to be able to do that. We can trust because we love, and in turn, we are loved. And if we love, guess what? When we truly love, we're not going to hurt each other. We're not going to give anybody reason to mistrust us. We need to be able to trust without wavering when we love. Number 9, Colossians 3:13. Bearing with one another and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, so you also must do. We need to be able to, if we love, and in a way that we love, we need to be able to forgive without punishing. Let's be honest with each other. I mean, let's just be honest. Sometimes we forgive, and as we forgive, we're looking forward to that even a short, small, brief period of time when we have that superior attitude that fills us, and sometimes it makes us feel so good that we're the superior person. We're the one with a higher position because we were right. And that person had to come to me and ask forgiveness from me. And we feel that superiority, even if it's for a short, brief period of time, we feel that way, and it makes us feel better about ourselves. Of course, that's not supposed to be that way. It's not the way we're supposed to feel. When a brother comes to us, it should be a period of rejoicing that relationship is restored, but unfortunately, that's the way that we feel sometimes. And when we love one another, if we love one another, when we love another, as we're supposed to love one another, guess what? Our desire should not be that feeling of superiority. It should be a desire to restore a relationship that was once broken. And nothing more than that. Nothing more than that. It is not a club to use at a later date. It is not an entry into a logbook that we can revisit and say, well, I remember back a couple of years ago when this happened. This gives me a reason that I won't trust them again because of this. We need to be able to forgive without punishing one another. True forgiveness is that. It's forgiveness and that's gone. It's done. It's remembered no more. Lastly, Proverbs chapter 13 and verse 12. When we love, as we love, how we're to love, we need to be able to promise without forgetting. I think this is important because it happens so often. In Proverbs 13 verse 12 it says, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire comes, it is a tree of life. When we love each other, when we love one another, and we make commitments to one another, we have entered into a trust that shall not be broken. You know what the idea in number 8, trust without wavering, it feeds directly into this. When we make a promise and when someone's make a promise to us, if somebody makes a promise to me, I have the reason to expect that they're going to fulfill that promise. And if I make a promise to somebody else, they have a reasonable right for me to fulfill that promise to them. Are we always faithful in our promises? No, unfortunately we're not. You know, sometimes things happen and we're not able to fulfill those promises. Physically, we just can't do it. If I promise somebody, yes, I'm going to come to this event or I'm going to do this thing for you, and all of a sudden a family member is taken to the hospital and I've got to go be with them, you know what? That's understandable. And the person that you made the promise to should say, look, I understand you need to take care of something and you need to go and you need to do that. But you know what? So often we make a promise and a promise is nothing more than a flight of fancy. Oh, yeah, I'll help you out with that. Hey, man, are you still going to be able to? Yeah, something came up and I'm just not going to be able to go. Well, what came up? Well, just something I have to do. You know, we've made a promise and all of a sudden we're not going to fulfill that promise. What does that do? That leads to mistrust. And we just said we have to be able to trust without wavering. Well, when we've given people reason to mistrust, that's what's going to happen. No, does that mean that they're not going to forgive you? No, it doesn't mean that at all. But it just means that second time, all of a sudden, the understanding or the belief is there that, guess what, you may not do what you said you were going to do. But when we love one another and we make commitments to each other, we've entered into that trust that cannot and should not be broken. No matter what the promise is, even if it's something that you consider to be a small thing, it's important to at least one of the persons that witnessed the promise. Because we love one another, we must make every effort to fulfill a promise. And because to do so demonstrates the love that we have for one another. And we have a perfect example in God. God is faithful in all of His promises. If we were to strive to be Christ-like and to act in a manner that's befitting a follower of God, we must do what He does. As He makes promises, He fulfills them in every way He makes them, no matter what the conditions. If He makes it, He follows through on it. 10 ways that we love one another and ways that we can improve our love for one another and we can improve our love for God. Every single one of these could speak to us and help us to grow in love towards one another. That's what I want to encourage. Like I said, I see the love that we have for one another here as brethren. And it makes me smile when I realize how much the congregation here loves each other. But you know what? There's always room for improvement. There may be something here that's speaking to you and said, you know what? I haven't been doing what I should be doing in that regard. I've fallen down on that. I need to get better at that. I may need to restore a relationship with somebody over something that I've done in regards to one of these things. If you need to do that, I want you to do that with one another this morning. Before you leave here, make it right with your brethren. But if you need to repent of sin, you need to do that this morning as well. and restore that relationship between you and God. If you need the prayers of the congregation, if you need to restore that right relationship, I want you to do that this morning. If you've never put on Christ in baptism and become a child of God in the truest sense of the word, He loves you and He wants you to do that this morning. If you need that, if you need to do either of those things, please come while we stand and while we sing.